G'day, cheers. It's actually a Cooper's Pale Ale clone, all grain, for a competition of Australian ales I'm going in soon. I'm not sure if it's quite right, but it's pretty close. The last video I did about the carbonation cap and the bottle filler cap got a lot of inquiries and a lot of questions, and so did KEG King. I was speaking to Key from KEG King. He's a great guy, and he suggested that I try one of these bottle guns and show you these bottle guns. Now, I've always wanted one. They're very handy for filling up bottles. You don't need to have a screw top like you do with the other style I showed you. I'll just show you what you get in the box. Two pieces of line, gas, beer, the gun itself. There it is there. I'll give you a closer look at that later. And what else do you get? A couple of clips, just to make sure you've got tight seals on those hoses. I'll give you a closer look. So there's what you get, your two pieces of hose. I'll move them out of the way, we don't need to really see them. And then two clips and the gun. Now, it works pretty simple. The beer line gets hooked up to here, to the middle pipe. The gas line gets hooked up to here. The gas line goes through a valve, which you open and close by pressing that button. And the beer line you operate turning off and on by pushing that up and down. And as you can see, when you do that, it opens up, lets the beer out down here. And when you press this button, the gas comes down this outer pipe and out the bottom here. I'll give you a closer look again. There's the end of the gun there. The beer comes out there when you pull on the trigger. And the gas, when you press the button, comes out of this pipe here, this outer pipe. So when you fill your bottle, that goes in the bottom like that. You press the gas, about 5-10 seconds, that'll fill your bottom of your bottle up with gas. Once your bottom of your bottle's full up with gas, you fill it up with beer by depressing that. It's great, simple, and works really well. There's a close-up of the other business end. There's your gas button and your beer trigger. Now, this gas line's got a barb on it. That can be swapped over, and you purchase an extra quick disconnect post. So if you like, you can connect your gas pipe, your quick disconnect straight onto it. So they're nice and simple. I've just hooked my beer line up to a beer quick disconnect and onto the top there and crimped it with the supplied clamp. Now, the gas side is a little different. If you've got two kegs, so you have two gas supply lines obviously, you can buy a post, a quick disconnect post, put it on there, so one of your gas lines that's normally up to your keg can go directly onto your gas line, and then you've got another gas line to help push the beer out of your keg and through the beer gun. If you only have a single keg setup, then you're going to need a little bit more line, gas line, and a splitter, so you can use a normal T-piece like that, just to split your gas line up. So you've got gas for your gun and gas for your keg. I use these little fittings, which are about $10 each. These T-pieces actually have a tap on them. You don't really need the tap in this situation, but I use them in my kegerator, and this is what I'm going to use to split the gas. Well, what I'm actually going to do is just use one of these pieces, hook that up to my gas line to here, and over there on my keg system, I can just unplug the normal one that goes to the quick disconnect to one of my kegs and plug in the line that goes to my beer gun. If you don't know how to do these, they're pretty easy. You have to pull off that little blue clip. There's a little ridge on it so you can grab a hold of it. You just pull it off like that. They're the John Guest style. Push that in. Push that in and hold it in, and then that pops out. Simple as pushing it back in. You pull it out a little bit to get that ridge, and push your clip back on. These work great. I haven't got the room for a big steel manifold in my kegerator, so I just use a couple of these. Incidentally, I got these from Keg King too. As I said, I think they're about $10 each from memory. And they piggyback. You can piggyback one into the other. That might be another video. And just before I set everything up, using my handy dandy garden pressure pack beer line cleaner, I can run some star sand through the beer line just to sanitize everything up. You can also use the carbonator cap bottle filler. If you put some star sand in a PET bottle and pressurize it up with a bit of gas, you can then, of course, once you hook up the beer line, that gas will force the star sand through the beer line and sanitize it. So if I hook it up to this beer gun, and hopefully you might be able to see, there we go, spraying everything. So there you go, that beer line's full of star sand. I just have to leave that for maybe a minute or two, and that'll star sand everything up inside clean. Now this may be a little bit hard to see, but I wouldn't normally do it on the dining room table. It'd be normally done beside my kegerator or just next to my kegerator. But I thought I'd pull everything out just to try and make it a bit clearer, because you wouldn't see anything with all the gas bottle and everything in the kegerator. So as I said, here's a keg of beer that I want to bottle. At the moment, it's probably at about 13 psi or 12 psi. So that's a bit much. I'm going to just let a bit of that gas out, because we only want to be doing this at low psi or we will foam up. As I said before, we need 2 supplies of gas. We need one going to the keg. And just before I do that, I'll turn this gas pressure down to about 3 psi. I'll try first to use the beer gun. It's just over 2, not quite 3. Hook one line up to the keg as usual. Make sure I get the right side. Just like that. Now my other line, I simply take out the other quick disconnect I use for my keg. And plug in the one I've connected to the beer gun. Simply slides in, pull it out, and you just put that little stopper clip there, and that's in nice and tight now. Now I can turn, now the gas is the right pressure, as I said, just over 2 psi. I'll turn them both on to the keg and to the gun. So by rights now, when I press that gas button, don't know if you picked that up on camera or you saw that little puff of sanitizer. The gas is now coming through when I press the button. As I said, this is still full of star sand, the beer line. Just try and get this so there's no pressure in there, it doesn't push it back into the keg. Hook the beer line up to the keg. Like that. Now, this has still got a heap of star sand in it, so I'll just empty it into the glass by pulling the trigger for the beer till the beer starts coming through. That's the beer. We'll wash a bit more through just to get rid of that star sand. See, that's very low pressure. I could probably up it a bit. Might put it up to try it up to 4. So now that beer line to the gun is full of beer. Funny enough. Now another good tip is if your bottles are cold, about the same temperature as your beer. So even if you do have to do them in half a dozen lots, whack them in the fridge get them cold, it'll foam up less. It's also great to have a large jug with starseed in it that you can sit your beer gun in between bottles, or if you have to put it down to do anything. Now I'll try and show you with this. I'll show you from a distance first, and then I'll do a close-up of how it actually works. So you grab your beer gun, you put it right down onto the bottom of the glass. You don't try and jam it in there because you'll ruin the little rubber on the bottom. You purge it with gas first for maybe 5-10 seconds. Just like that. And then you start with the beer. So you just put it to the bottom of the glass, bit of gas, then the beer. Anyway, I can show you on the bottle. As I said, these bottles have been sanitised already and stored in the fridge. So the colder they are, the less it's going to foam. But as you saw, that didn't foam very much anyway. But the same thing, put it down to the bottom of the glass, press your button. Probably enough to just push CO2 down the bottom of your bottle to stop so much oxygenation when you put your beer in. Pull your beer trigger. And fill your beer. Now if you do get a little bit of head at the top of your beer, just a tiny bit, it's actually beneficial. And I'll tell you why in the end. This isn't getting hardly any. It works really, really well. You just fill it to the top like you would with a bottle filler. Once it gets to the top like that, pull that out, and you can purge the CO2 out again from the top of the bottle. A couple of presses if you really want to, and just cap it as usual. And there you go. That's carbonated. It'll stay carbonated. You haven't got any junk in the bottom for your friends or for competitions, and you're laughing. Now if you do get a little bit of foam at the top, it can be beneficial, and it actually saves you purging the head space, because anything that's coming out of that beer is CO2 in the head. So if there's if you've got an inch of head and it's coming over the top a bit just before your cap, that's fine. That means there's no oxygen in that head space at all. But if you're not getting it like this, like when it pours perfectly like that, fills the bottle perfectly like that, you can just purge and push the oxygen out using the CO2 button again. So you keep doing that to fill up as many as you want, or take to parties. Now you will lose a tiny bit of carbonation, like the tiniest amount, only because it has to equal out the pressure in that headspace of that tiny little gap there of your bottle. So if you want it, the night before, you can up your pressure on your keg by maybe 1 psi, just to put a little bit more fizz in it before your bottle, and that way if you lose a tiny bit, it's not going to matter. But that's a great way to bottle, it really is. So that's it, packed up, done. Worked really well, surprised me how well it worked again. For the price of it, $75, it's a good buy, it's a good buy. Just a few hints: if you're having troubles with too much foaming, make sure your bottles are cold. Mine were cold to start with today, and then I bottled in a few of the warm ones in that warmer glass you saw before, and I never had any issues. So that can be one problem though, if you are having issues. Store your bottles correctly, that you're filled of course, or take them to a party and drink them. You can fill anything, growlers, the PET bottles, anything that'll reach to the bottom of though. You want to get that close to the bottom. If you're too high up, then you're not going to have much luck. You're going to end up with a lot of splashing. But that'll reach to the bottom of most bottles. I think it'll even reach. There's a 2 litre bottle, and it'll easily make the bottom of the 2 litre bottle. I'll leave a link to KEG down the bottom again, if anybody wants to get their hands on one. Sanitise everything, cold bottles, lower your pressure. I could have went a bit higher with this beer. I was on 4 in the end then. I probably could have went a little bit higher, but you don't want it to start foaming. That was about 4 psi. You can get replacement rubbers if you wear them out from putting them on the bottom of the bottles for a couple of bucks. There's not much else to tell. I flushed the lines out at the end with more Star Sand using my garden pressure spray cleaner, or you can use, as I said before, the carbonated bottle filler cap will work. Cheers.